In today's episode, we are going to look into moments where people got mauled after trying to get a selfie with wild animals. From a veterinary student who got too close for comfort to a teenager attacked by a chimpanzee. Let's dive straight right in.
It was March 15, 2019, in the lush hills surrounding Chiang Mai, Thailand, where dozens of unregulated wildlife sanctuaries operate in the shadows of legitimate conservation efforts. The Tiger Paradise Sanctuary, a small facility nestled between dense jungle and rice paddies, marketed itself as an authentic wildlife experience for adventurous tourists. Unlike accredited zoos, this establishment allowed direct contact with adult tigers for premium fees, capitalizing on visitors' desire for extraordinary social media content. The humid tropical air carried the scent of jasmine and tiger musk, while the distant sounds of motorbikes on rural roads mixed with occasional roars from the enclosures. Amber Whitfield, a 28-year-old social media manager from Sydney, had built a modest following of 4,200 Instagram followers by documenting her Southeast Asian backpacking adventure. Working for a small travel company back home, she understood the power of compelling visual content. Her competitive nature drove her to seek increasingly daring experiences that would set her apart from other travel bloggers. After reading mixed reviews about Tiger Paradise, she specifically chose this sanctuary because it offered the closest contact with tigers available in the region. The facility's promise of private photo sessions with adult Bengal tigers was exactly what she needed for her content strategy. Her previous posts from elephant sanctuaries and snake farms had generated significant engagement, fueling her desire for even more dramatic content. The sanctuary housed 12 tigers in concrete enclosures surrounded by basic chain-link fencing. Warning signs in broken English advised visitors to maintain distance, but enforcement was minimal. Staff members, mostly local workers with little formal training in animal behavior, prioritized customer satisfaction over safety protocols. The facility's main attraction was Raja, a 400-pound male Bengal tiger rescued from illegal captivity as a cub but never properly socialized. His massive orange coat bore the distinctive black stripes that made him particularly photogenic, explaining why tourists specifically requested sessions with him. Bengal tigers are apex predators capable of taking down prey weighing over 1,000 pounds. Their powerful jaws generate bite forces exceeding 1,000 pounds per square inch, while their razor-sharp canine teeth can reach lengths of 2 inches. Despite their massive size, tigers can accelerate from 0 to 35 miles per hour in just a few strides. Their hunting instincts remain intact even in captivity, triggered by sudden movements, direct eye contact, or prey-like behavior from humans. Even hand-raised tigers retain their predatory programming, making them unpredictable around humans regardless of their apparent docility. Amber's private session with Raja began at 2:30 p.m. in a concrete enclosure measuring roughly 30 by 40 feet. The tiger appeared calm, lying in the shade near the back wall, while Amber maintained the recommended 10-foot distance. As she grew more confident, she gradually moved closer, encouraged by Raja's seemingly docile demeanor. The untrained staff member supervising the session failed to recognize the subtle signs of the tiger's increasing alertness, his ears rotating forward and his tail beginning to twitch. When Amber turned her back to Raja and extended her phone for a selfie, she unknowingly triggered the predator's hunting instincts. The massive tiger exploded into motion with terrifying speed, covering the distance between them in less than 2 seconds. His powerful hind legs propelled him forward in one fluid leap, his front paws extended and claws fully deployed. Raja's jaws clamped down on the back of Amber's neck with surgical precision. His 2-inch canine teeth penetrated between her cervical vertebrae, severing her spinal cord at the C2 level. The crushing force of his bite completely fractured her second cervical vertebra, causing immediate paralysis from the neck down. The tiger's massive jaw pressure compressed her carotid arteries and jugular veins, cutting off blood flow to her brain within seconds. The attack lasted less than 10 seconds. Raja's bite severed Amber's brainstem, causing instant unconsciousness and respiratory failure. Her nervous system shut down immediately, preventing any pain sensation from reaching her brain. The tiger released his grip and stepped back, his predatory instincts satisfied by the successful kill. Amber's body collapsed to the concrete floor, her phone still clutched in her right hand, the intended selfie never captured. Staff members rushed into the enclosure within minutes, but Amber showed no signs of life. Her neck displayed massive trauma from the tiger's bite, with deep puncture wounds marking where the canine teeth had penetrated. A complete severing of her spinal cord had caused immediate death, with no possibility of survival even with immediate medical intervention. Thai authorities launched an investigation into the facility's safety protocols and licensing status. The Tiger Paradise Sanctuary was temporarily closed, pending review of its animal handling procedures. Amber's family released a brief statement requesting privacy while they processed the tragic loss of their adventurous daughter. It was June 8, 2020, in the vast wetlands of Big Cypress National Preserve, Florida, where private swampland stretches for miles through sawgrass prairies and cypress domes. The remote backcountry waterways, accessible only by airboat or shallow draft vessels, harbor some of America's largest alligator populations. During the peak of mating season, territorial male alligators become increasingly aggressive, defending prime nesting areas along muddy banks and shallow channels. The humid air hung thick with the scent of decaying vegetation and stagnant water. Keith Renshaw, a 35-year-old freelance wildlife photographer from Denver, had spent the last 3 years struggling to establish himself in the competitive nature photography market. His recent divorce had left him financially strained, desperately needing a breakthrough assignment to secure a potential contract with National Geographic. Keith's perfectionist personality and growing arrogance had led him to take increasingly dangerous risks for unique shots that other photographers wouldn't attempt. He had hired Jake Morrison, a local Seminole guide with decades of swamp experience, for an exclusive tour of restricted backcountry areas known for trophy-sized alligators. Keith's dismissive attitude toward local expertise and his obsession with capturing the perfect shot had already caused tension during their morning expedition. The preserve's waterways were experiencing peak alligator activity due to the June breeding season. Morrison had warned Keith repeatedly about the heightened aggression of territorial males, but the photographer's determination to capture dramatic images overshadowed his caution. They had spotted several large bulls throughout the day, but Keith remained unsatisfied with the distance and lighting conditions for his shots. American alligators are apex predators that have remained virtually unchanged for over 200 million years. Adult males can reach lengths of 14 feet and weights exceeding 1,000 pounds, with bite forces measuring nearly 3,000 pounds per square inch. During mating season, territorial bulls become extremely aggressive, defending prime nesting sites and responding violently to any perceived intrusion. Their powerful tails can propel them through water at speeds up to 25 miles per hour, while their explosive launch from water to land can cover distances of 6 feet vertically. Despite their bulky appearance, alligators possess lightning-fast reflexes and can remain motionless for hours before striking with devastating speed. At 3:45 p.m., Keith spotted a massive 12-foot bull alligator sunning on a muddy bank near a narrow channel. The reptile's scarred hide and impressive girth indicated an old, dominant male defending prime territory. Morrison immediately recognized the danger signs. The alligator's elevated position on the bank and its alert posture suggested heightened territorial awareness. Despite urgent warnings from his guide, Keith insisted on approaching closer for better photographic angles. Keith slowly waded into the murky water, his expensive camera equipment held high above the surface. The water reached his waist as he moved within 6 feet of the massive reptile, which remained motionless except for its eyes tracking his movement. Morrison shouted warnings from the boat, but Keith dismissed them as overcautious local superstition. The attack came without warning. The 12-foot bull exploded from the bank with terrifying speed, his massive body launching through the air before crashing into the water. His enormous jaws snapped shut around Keith's torso just below his ribcage, the 80 razor-sharp teeth puncturing through his abdomen. and lower chest. The initial bite force of nearly 3,000 psi crushed several ribs and punctured his liver and stomach, causing immediate internal bleeding. The death roll began instantly. The alligator spun violently in the water, using his powerful tail and body weight to disorient his victim. Keith's body rotated helplessly as the spinning motion tore muscles and ligaments while forcing muddy water into his mouth and nose. The crushing pressure of the jaws compressed his internal organs as his ribs cracked audibly with each rotation. After 4 complete 360-degree spins, the alligator's grip shifted, allowing more water to flood Keith's airways. The massive reptile then began dragging Keith toward deeper water, maintaining his crushing grip while Keith's consciousness faded from oxygen deprivation. The muddy swamp water filled his lungs as he remained trapped in the alligator's jaws. Unable to surface or breathe, his struggles grew weaker as drowning combined with massive internal trauma from the crushing bite. The alligator held him underwater for nearly 3 minutes, ensuring his prey was completely subdued before releasing the lifeless body. Keith's body floated to the surface, showing extensive crush injuries across his torso and abdomen. The alligator's teeth had left deep puncture wounds, while the death roll had caused severe internal damage to his organs and skeletal structure. However, the primary cause of death was drowning, as swamp water had completely filled his lungs during the prolonged underwater struggle. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission launched an investigation into the incident, reviewing safety protocols for guided tours in alligator habitats during breeding season. It was August 22, 2021, in the remote backcountry of Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming, where vast wilderness stretches across 2.2 million acres of untamed landscape. The Pelican Valley area serves as prime grizzly bear habitat during late summer berry season. Rolling hills covered in huckleberry bushes provide essential food sources for bears preparing for winter hibernation. The morning air carried the crisp scent of pine and distant elk bugles. Darren Cole, a 42-year-old IT consultant from Portland, had recently separated from his wife and sought solace in solo wilderness adventures. His weekend hiking trips had evolved into increasingly ambitious backcountry expeditions, fueled by an overconfident personality developed through years of incident-free outdoor experiences. Darren's stubborn nature and belief in his wilderness skills had made him dismissive of park safety guidelines, particularly regarding wildlife encounters. He adventured into Pelican Valley specifically because of recent grizzly sightings, hoping to photograph bears for his modest social media following of 3,800 outdoor enthusiasts. His expensive camera equipment and determination to capture unique wildlife images had driven him deeper into restricted areas than most visitors dared to explore. The late August timing coincided with peak bear activity, as grizzlies frantically consumed thousands of calories daily to prepare for winter denning. Female bears with cubs became especially protective during this critical feeding period, viewing any potential threat as a danger to their offspring's survival. Park rangers had posted warnings about increased bear activity throughout the backcountry, but Darren's confidence led him to ignore these advisories. Grizzly bears are North America's most formidable predators, with adult females weighing up to 400 pounds and males reaching 800 pounds. Their powerful limbs can propel them at speeds exceeding 35 miles per hour, while their 4-inch claws and massive jaw muscles make them capable of crushing bones with ease. A grizzly's bite force reaches 1,200 pounds per square inch, easily capable of crushing a human skull. Despite their bulk, grizzlies possess surprising agility and can navigate steep terrain with remarkable ease. Mother bears with cubs display extreme protective behavior, attacking perceived threats with devastating ferocity. At 2:15 p.m., Darren spotted a female grizzly with 2 yearling cubs foraging in a berry-rich meadow approximately 200 yards away. The 350-pound sow appeared focused on feeding, methodically stripping berries from bushes while her cubs played nearby. Darren immediately began photographing from his initial distance, but the lighting conditions failed to meet his perfectionist standards. He gradually moved closer, stopping periodically to capture images while the bear family continued feeding. panicking. The sow began displaying stress signals as Darren approached within 100 yards, huffing sounds, jaw popping, and swaying her massive head from side to side. These warning behaviors escalated when he reached 75 yards, but Darren misinterpreted them as normal bear behavior rather than clear threat displays. His movement pattern inadvertently positioned him between the mother and one of her cubs, triggering her protective instincts. When Darren advanced to within 50 yards for better photographic angles, the situation reached a critical threshold. One yearling cub wandered behind Darren's position, effectively trapping the human between the protective mother and her offspring. The sow's demeanor changed instantly from cautious awareness to explosive aggression. The grizzly charged at full speed, covering the 50-yard distance in less than 4 seconds. Her massive paws thundered against the ground as she closed the gap with terrifying velocity. Darren fumbled desperately for his bear spray, but the canister remained clipped to his backpack as the 350-pound predator struck him with tremendous force. The sow's initial blow came from her massive front paws, her 4-inch claws raking across Darren's chest and face. The impact knocked him backward onto the ground, opening deep gashes from his collarbone to his sternum. Blood immediately began flowing from the parallel claw marks as the bear's razor-sharp talons tore through muscle and tissue. Her second strike targeted his head, her powerful jaws clamping down on his skull with crushing force. The grizzly's bite generated over 1,200 pounds per square inch of pressure, fracturing Darren's skull and causing immediate brain trauma. Her canine teeth, each over an inch long, punctured through his scalp and penetrated the bone beneath. She shook him violently, the motion causing additional fractures to his cervical vertebrae and severe damage to his brain stem. The mauling continued for approximately 90 seconds as the protective mother ensured the threat to her cubs was completely eliminated. She struck repeatedly with her claws, opening his abdomen and exposing internal organs, while her powerful jaws delivered crushing bites to his torso and limbs. When Darren's movements ceased, the sow delivered one final bite to his neck before retreating to gather her cubs. Darren died from massive head trauma and blood loss within minutes of the attack's conclusion. The combination of skull fractures, brain damage, and severe hemorrhaging from multiple wounds proved immediately fatal. His body was discovered 4 hours later by park rangers. Yellowstone National Park officials launched an investigation into the incident, reviewing Darren's hiking permits and circumstances leading to the encounter. It was October 5, 2022, off the rugged coastline of Año Nuevo State Park, California, where the Pacific Ocean meets dramatic cliffs and rocky outcroppings. This remote stretch of coast serves as critical habitat for elephant seals and harbor seals during breeding season. The area's abundant marine life creates a natural feeding ground that attracts some of the ocean's most formidable predators. Cold currents bring nutrient-rich waters close to shore, supporting massive populations of fish, seals, and sea lions. Shelby Grant, a 26-year-old graduate student in marine biology at UC Santa Barbara, was conducting independent research on great white shark behavior patterns for her doctoral thesis. Her academic confidence had convinced her that she could predict shark actions better than recreational surfers. Shelby's passionate but reckless personality often led her to take unnecessary risks that other researchers avoided. Her competitive drive to publish groundbreaking research had brought her to Año Nuevo specifically because of recent great white sightings. She maintained a modest social media presence of 4,500 followers, documenting her marine research adventures. The area was experiencing a significant boom in seal populations, which naturally attracted large predatory sharks. Recent reports from California Department of Fish and Wildlife had documented increased great white activity along this coastline, with several confirmed sightings of sharks exceeding 15 feet in length. Local surf shops had posted warnings about elevated shark presence, but Shelby's academic background made her believe she possessed superior understanding of shark behavior. Great white sharks are the ocean's apex predators, capable of reaching lengths over 20 feet and weights exceeding 5,000 pounds. Their powerful tails can propel them through water at speeds up to 35 miles per hour, while their ability to launch themselves completely out of the water demonstrates incredible power. A great white's mouth contains up to 300 serrated teeth arranged in in multiple rows, each designed to slice through flesh and bone with devastating efficiency. Their bite force can exceed 4,000 pounds per square inch, easily capable of severing human limbs. Great whites typically employ ambush tactics, attacking from below with explosive speed. At 11:30 a.m., Shelby paddled her surfboard to a position approximately 200 yards from shore, where water depth reached 40 feet. When she spotted a large dorsal fin cutting through the water 50 feet away, Shelby immediately recognized it as belonging to a massive great white shark. Rather than paddling to shore, she pulled out her waterproof camera and began filming the encounter. The 16-foot shark began circling her position in increasingly tight patterns, displaying typical investigative behavior. Shelby remained motionless on her surfboard, believing her knowledge would keep her safe. The great white's circles grew progressively smaller, bringing the massive predator within 20 feet of her position. Without warning, the massive great white launched its attack from directly below. The shark's explosive vertical assault lifted both Shelby and her board partially out of the water as its enormous jaws clamped down on her left leg and the surfboard's edge simultaneously. The impact generated tremendous force as 300 razor-sharp teeth sliced through her femur, completely severing her leg at mid-thigh level. The initial bite caused catastrophic trauma as the shark's serrated teeth cut through bone, muscle, and major blood vessels with surgical precision. Her femoral artery was completely severed, causing immediate massive hemorrhaging that turned the surrounding water crimson. The shark's 4,000 psi bite force crushed her femur into multiple fragments, while its teeth created deep lacerations extending from her hip to her knee. Following typical great white behavior, the shark immediately released Shelby and disappeared beneath the surface. This bite and release pattern occurs when sharks realize humans are not their preferred prey, but the damage was already catastrophic. Shelby remained conscious but in severe shock from the massive trauma and blood loss. Despite her devastating injuries, Shelby managed to climb back onto her damaged surfboard and began paddling desperately toward shore. Blood poured continuously from the severed femoral artery, creating an expanding red trail in the water. Her weakened condition made progress extremely slow. Other surfers spotted her distress from approximately 100 yards away and immediately began paddling to assist. However, Shelby had already lost massive amounts of blood during the critical minutes following the attack. She collapsed from her surfboard just 75 yards from shore, her strength completely depleted. The responding surfers reached her within 2 minutes and immediately began applying pressure to the massive wound while supporting her in the water. They rushed her toward shore while attempting to stem the hemorrhaging, but the severed femoral artery had already caused irreversible blood loss. Emergency medical personnel met them at the shoreline and began advanced trauma procedures, but Shelby had lost too much blood. She died on the beach from hemorrhagic shock, approximately 15 minutes after the initial attack. Shelby's family released a statement honoring her dedication to marine conservation. It was January 12, 2023, at the Kibale Chimpanzee Rescue Sanctuary in the dense rainforests of western Uganda, where towering mahogany trees create a natural canopy over 30 acres of protected habitat. The facility serves as a rehabilitation center for chimpanzees rescued from illegal pet trade and bushmeat hunting. Morning mist hung heavy in the humid air as hooting calls echoed through the forest corridors. The sanctuary housed 47 rescued chimpanzees, many displaying behavioral issues from their traumatic captivity experiences. Wesley Boone, a 31-year-old veterinary student from Vancouver, had taken a gap year to gain hands-on experience with exotic animals. His compassionate but naive personality led him to anthropomorphize the chimpanzees, treating them more like intelligent humans than wild animals capable of extreme violence. Wesley's inexperience with primate behavior, combined with his overconfidence in animal handling skills, created a dangerous combination. He had been volunteering at the sanctuary for 3 months, documenting his experiences for his modest Instagram following of 3,200 followers. His desire to capture compelling content had driven him to seek increasingly close interactions, despite strict facility protocols prohibiting direct contact. The sanctuary's most challenging resident was Caesar, a 150-pound adult male chimpanzee rescued from illegal captivity 2 years earlier. Caesar had been kept as a pet until he became too aggressive for his captors to handle. His history of abuse had left him with severe behavioral problems, including sudden violent outbursts triggered by direct eye contact, perceived challenges to his dominance, or unexpected movements. Staff members had repeatedly warned volunteers about Caesar's unpredictable nature and the strict protocols requiring barriers between humans and adult males. Chimpanzees are humanity's closest living relatives, sharing 98% of human DNA, but they possess physical capabilities that far exceed human strength and aggression. Adult male chimpanzees can weigh up to 200 pounds and possess arm strength 5 times greater than humans. Their canine teeth can reach lengths of 2 inches, designed for tearing flesh and establishing dominance through violence. Even hand-raised chimps retain their capacity for explosive violence, with attacks often targeting faces, hands, and genitals to inflict maximum damage. Their incredible grip strength can crush bones, while their speed makes escape nearly impossible. At 2:45 p.m., Wesley made the fatal decision to enter Caesar's enclosure while the large male appeared to be resting peacefully. He had observed Caesar for weeks and believed he understood the chimp's behavioral patterns well enough to predict safe interaction opportunities. Wesley quietly slipped through the enclosure gate, his phone ready to capture what he hoped would be an impressive selfie demonstrating his bond with the rescued primate. Caesar initially remained motionless as Wesley approached, sitting approximately 20 feet away near the back wall. The chimp's relaxed posture gave Wesley false confidence that the interaction would remain peaceful. As Wesley raised his phone and moved closer for the perfect shot, he made direct eye contact with Caesar while extending the device toward both of them. The eye contact triggered Caesar's aggressive response instantly. In chimpanzee social hierarchy, direct staring represents a challenge to dominance that demands violent retaliation. Caesar's hair stood on end as he bared his massive canine teeth and emitted a threatening scream. The attack began with explosive speed as Caesar charged across the enclosure, covering the distance in less than 3 seconds. His powerful arms grabbed Wesley's face with crushing force, his fingers digging into the soft tissue around his eyes and cheeks. Caesar's incredible grip strength immediately began crushing the delicate bones of Wesley's facial structure. Caesar's 2-inch canine teeth tore into Wesley's throat with surgical precision, puncturing his trachea and severing his carotid artery in one devastating bite. Blood immediately began pouring from the massive wound as Wesley's airway filled with fluid, preventing him from screaming. The chimp's powerful jaws maintained their grip on his throat, while his hands continued crushing Wesley's face and skull. The frenzied assault continued as Caesar bit off 2 of Wesley's fingers and tore away large sections of his scalp and left ear. The chimp's attacks were rapid and brutal, targeting the most vulnerable areas with devastating efficiency. Caesar's incredible strength allowed him to shake Wesley violently while maintaining his crushing grip. The violence lasted approximately 45 seconds before Caesar suddenly stopped attacking and retreated to the far corner of the enclosure. This abrupt cessation is typical of chimpanzee aggression, where explosive attacks end as quickly as they begin once dominance is established. Wesley collapsed to the concrete floor, his crushed windpipe preventing normal breathing, while massive blood loss from his severed carotid artery caused rapid deterioration. The combination of asphyxiation and hemorrhaging proved immediately fatal. He died within 2 minutes, his body showing extensive facial trauma, missing digits, and catastrophic throat injuries. Sanctuary staff discovered Wesley's body during the afternoon feeding routine 15 minutes later. Caesar remained in the corner, showing no further aggression, but clearly agitated. Ugandan wildlife authorities launched an investigation into the incident, reviewing safety protocols and volunteer supervision procedures. Wesley Boone's story demonstrated how humanity's closest relatives can turn lethal when their behavioral triggers are misunderstood.
It was March 15, 2014, when the golden African sun cast long shadows across Kruger National Park in South Africa. The dry season had transformed the landscape into yellowed grass and scattered acacia trees, where wildlife congregated around remaining water sources. 24-year-old Brooke Ellison, had traveled over 8,000 miles from San Diego, California, carrying nothing but a backpack, her smartphone, and dreams of social media stardom. Brooke worked part-time at a coffee shop while building her travel blog and TikTok account, which had recently reached 3,000 followers. Her willingness to take risks for the perfect shot had begun attracting attention online. She had saved for months to afford this 5-day photography safari, seeing it as her chance to create viral content. The tour group consisted of 8 tourists, all eager to capture Africa's Big Five. Their experienced guide, Marcus, had repeatedly warned the group about maintaining safe distances from wildlife. He emphasized that lions could become extremely dangerous when protecting cubs. Brooke listened with half attention, more focused on planning her next post than absorbing safety instructions. She had already posted several photos that pushed boundaries, getting closer to animals than recommended. The African lion stands as one of nature's most formidable predators, capable of reaching speeds up to 50 miles per hour. Adult females typically weigh between 265 to 395 pounds and possess incredibly powerful jaw muscles that can exert a bite force of over 650 pounds per square inch. Female lions are particularly dangerous when cubs are present, as their maternal instincts override any natural wariness of humans. On the afternoon of March 15th, the safari vehicle approached a pride resting under a large marula tree. The group consisted of 3 adult females and 4 cubs, approximately 6 months old. Marcus positioned the vehicle at the regulation 75-foot distance, allowing tourists to observe and photograph the magnificent cats. The lionesses appeared relaxed, occasionally grooming their cubs. During a brief bathroom break, Brooke noticed the cubs playing and saw an opportunity for unprecedented footage. While Marcus assisted an elderly tourist with camera equipment, Brooke quietly slipped away from the designated area. She moved steadily toward the pride, her phone already recording, completely focused on creating content rather than the increasing tension in the lioness's body language. The closest female, a mature lioness with distinctive scars, immediately detected Brooke's approach. The cat's ears swiveled forward, and her amber eyes locked onto the advancing human. At 30 feet, the lioness rose to her feet, positioning herself between her cubs and the perceived threat. Her tail began twitching rapidly, a clear warning sign that Brooke failed to recognize. When Brooke raised her phone to capture a selfie, she made direct eye contact with the protective mother. In lion behavior, sustained eye contact represents a direct challenge and threat. The lioness lowered her head, flattened her ears, and released a low, rumbling growl. The attack came with explosive speed. The 350-pound lioness launched herself forward, covering the remaining 25 feet in less than 2 seconds. Her powerful hind legs propelled her massive frame through the air with deadly precision. Brooke had no time to react, before 400 pounds of muscle and bone collided with her upper torso. The impact alone was devastating. The lioness's front paws struck Brooke's chest and shoulders with tremendous force, instantly fracturing multiple ribs and her sternum. The collision knocked Brooke backward onto the hard-packed earth, her phone flying from her grasp. The lioness's claws, each nearly 2 inches long, raked across Brooke's torso, tearing through clothing and flesh. The lioness then delivered a crushing bite to Brooke's neck and shoulder area. Her massive canine teeth penetrated deep into vital structures. The bite severed Brooke's carotid artery and damaged her trachea, causing immediate and catastrophic blood loss. The lioness maintained her grip for approximately 15 seconds, ensuring the bite remained fatal. Brooke's body went into immediate shock from the massive trauma and blood loss. Her heart rate spiked as her cardiovascular system attempted to compensate, but the damage was too severe. Within 90 seconds, her blood pressure dropped to critical levels, and her brain began shutting down from lack of oxygen. The combination of blood loss and airway damage proved fatal within 3 minutes. The lioness, having neutralized what she perceived as a threat to her cubs, immediately returned to her offspring. This behavior is typical of defensive attacks, where the animal's goal is protection rather than predation. Marcus and the other tourists reached the scene within 6 minutes, but Brooke had already succumbed to her injuries. South African national parks launched an investigation into the incident, reviewing safety protocols. The lioness and her pride were not relocated, as officials determined the attack was purely defensive behavior triggered by human error. Brooks' family released a statement requesting privacy while mourning their daughter's tragic death. It was August 23, 2015, when the oppressive Florida heat hung thick over the vast wetlands of Everglades National Park. The summer sun blazed overhead, creating a shimmering haze across the endless expanse of sawgrass marshes and cypress swamps. 21-year-old Jenna Hollister had driven down from Tallahassee with 5 sorority sisters, their SUV packed with coolers, cameras, and dreams of creating ultimate spring break content. Jenna was a junior at Florida State University, studying marketing while working part-time at a campus retail store. Her competitive nature and willingness to push boundaries for the perfect shot had attracted online attention. Her Instagram account had grown steadily, and she was determined to break into influencer territory. The Everglades trip was their group's grand finale before returning to classes. The group had arrived during peak mating season for American alligators, though none had researched the significance of timing. Park rangers had briefed visitors about maintaining safe distances from wildlife, especially during breeding periods when territorial behavior intensified. Jenna listened with casual attention, more interested in scouting locations than absorbing crucial information about alligator behavior. Her friends had noticed Jenna's pattern of taking increasingly risky photos throughout their Florida trip. She had waded closer to manatees than recommended and consistently dismissed safety concerns. Each post garnered more engagement, fueling her confidence that bigger risks would yield bigger rewards. The American alligator represents one of nature's most successful predators, virtually unchanged for over 200 million years. Adult males can reach lengths of 14 feet and weigh over 1,000 pounds, with incredibly powerful jaws capable of exerting bite forces exceeding 2,980 pounds per square inch. During mating season, male alligators become extremely territorial and aggressive, defending their chosen areas with lethal force. Alligators are ambush predators, perfectly adapted for shallow wetlands. Their eyes, ears, and nostrils are positioned on top of their heads, allowing them to remain nearly submerged while monitoring their surroundings. They can remain motionless for hours, appearing like floating logs until explosive bursts of speed propel them toward prey at speeds reaching 35 miles per hour in water. On the afternoon of August 23rd, the group discovered a secluded area where several large alligators basked along the water's edge. The largest specimen, a massive 12-foot male, lay partially submerged in shallow water near the bank. To the untrained eye, the reptile appeared docile as it remained perfectly still. Jenna immediately recognized the photo opportunity. While her friends set up their picnic on higher ground, Jenna grabbed her phone and began wading into knee-deep water. The murky brown liquid was warm against her legs as she moved slowly toward the resting alligator. She positioned herself approximately 6 feet from the massive reptile's head, close enough to capture both herself and the predator in a single frame. The alligator had been aware of human presence from the moment the group arrived. When Jenna entered the water and began moving closer, the reptile's predatory instincts activated. As Jenna raised her phone to capture the selfie, she created the perfect storm of triggers. The splashing water sent vibrations that the alligator's sensitive system interpreted as prey activity. The attack came with terrifying speed. The 800-pound alligator exploded from its resting position, its powerful tail propelling its massive body forward. Jenna had no time to react before the reptile's jaws clamped down on her left thigh with bone-crushing force. The impact knocked her off balance, sending her tumbling into deeper water. The alligator's conical teeth penetrated deep into muscle and bone. The initial bite severed her femoral artery, causing immediate and catastrophic blood loss that turned the brown water crimson. True to its species hunting behavior, the alligator immediately initiated its signature death roll. The massive reptile began spinning rapidly in the water, using its entire body weight to disorient and drown its victim. Jenna was pulled underwater and spun violently, her body rotating with the alligator's powerful movements. During the death roll, Her femur snapped completely under the tremendous rotational forces. The combination of massive blood loss from the severed femoral artery and inability to breathe during prolonged submersion proved fatal. Jenna's body went into shock from trauma and blood loss, while her lungs filled with murky swamp water. After 2 minutes of continuous death rolling, her movements ceased entirely. The alligator released its grip and allowed the body to float to the surface, typical behavior as they often cache prey underwater for later consumption. Park rangers arrived within 20 minutes, but recovery efforts were complicated by multiple large alligators in the area. Jenna's body was retrieved 4 hours later. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission launched an investigation, reviewing safety protocols. Jenna's family released a brief statement expressing grief and requesting privacy. The incident reignited debates about social media culture and the dangerous lengths young people will go to for viral content. It was September 9, 2016, when the first hints of autumn colored the forests of Glacier National Park, Montana. The air was crisp, and the mountains stood tall against a sky streaked with early morning clouds. The park's dense stands of pine and aspen were alive with the sounds of birds and the distant rush of glacial streams. Victoria Langford, 28, had arrived the previous day, eager to spend a weekend alone in the backcountry. She was a marketing manager for an outdoor gear company, experienced in hiking and camping, and had come to Glacier to create promotional content for her company's new line of bear spray. Victoria's confidence in the outdoors was well known among her friends and colleagues. She had completed several solo hikes in the past, and often posted about her adventures on social media. Her company encouraged her to document her trips, hoping her photos and videos would inspire others to explore the wild. Victoria planned to hike a remote trail along a salmon-rich stream, film herself using the new bear spray, and capture the park's rugged beauty for her followers. She packed light, carrying her camera, a tripod, and the bear spray, though she kept it in her backpack rather than on her belt where it would be easily accessible. The park was in the midst of the annual salmon run, a time when grizzly bears descended from the high country to feed along the streams. Rangers had posted warnings at trailheads, reminding hikers to make noise, travel in groups, and keep bear spray accessible at all times. Victoria, hiking alone, was aware of the risks but trusted her experience and the reliability of her gear. She moved quietly through the forest, pausing often to set up her camera and record the landscape. Her social media posts from previous trips showed a pattern of getting closer to wildlife than most experts would recommend, always in pursuit of that perfect shot. Grizzly bears are among North America's most powerful predators. Adult females can weigh up to 400 pounds, while males can exceed 600. Their muscular bodies, long claws, and keen sense of smell make them formidable hunters and scavengers. During the salmon run, grizzlies become especially active and territorial, often defending feeding sites from other bears and any perceived threats. A grizzly's charge can reach speeds of 30 miles per hour, and their bite force is strong enough to crush bone. Most attacks occur when a bear is surprised at close range or feels its cubs or food source are threatened. Mother bears with cubs are particularly dangerous, as their protective instincts override any natural wariness of humans. On the morning of September 9th, Victoria followed a narrow trail along a stream thick with spawning salmon. The air was filled with the scent of wet earth and fish, and the sound of rushing water masked her footsteps. She paused to film a segment for her company, then continued deeper into the woods, her camera in hand. Around a bend, she spotted a female grizzly with 2 yearling cubs, all focused on the salmon in the water. Victoria stopped, quietly setting up her tripod to capture the scene. The bear, intent on fishing, was only about 30 feet away. Victoria, hoping for a dramatic shot that would showcase both the wildlife and her company's products, moved a few steps closer, camera raised. The grizzly's head lifted, nostrils flaring as she caught Victoria's scent. The bear's posture changed instantly, ears back, head low, and a deep huff breaking the quiet. The cubs scrambled up the bank behind their mother, sensing danger. Without warning, the grizzly charged. In less than 2 seconds, the 400-pound bear closed the distance, her powerful legs propelling her across the uneven ground with terrifying speed. Victoria had no time to reach for her bear spray buried deep in her backpack. The bear struck with her front paws, knocking Victoria to the ground with tremendous force. The impact fractured Victoria's ribs and collarbone, and the collision sent her camera skidding into the brush. The grizzly's claws, each nearly 4 inches long, raked across Victoria's torso, tearing through her jacket and into the muscle beneath. The bear bit down on Victoria's shoulder and upper chest, her massive jaws crushing bone and severing arteries. Blood pooled rapidly on the forest floor as the bear shook her victim. The grizzly continued the attack for nearly a minute, delivering several more blows and bites before retreating to her cubs, who watched from the safety of the trees. Victoria's injuries were catastrophic. The initial impact had broken multiple ribs and her collarbone, while the bear's claws and teeth caused deep lacerations and puncture wounds throughout her upper body. The bite to her chest severed the subclavian artery, leading to rapid and fatal blood loss. The massive trauma sent her body into shock, and within minutes, Victoria lost consciousness and died at the scene. Rangers responding to an emergency call from another hiker found Victoria's body later that morning. The area was immediately closed off, and wildlife officials began a thorough investigation, reviewing trail safety protocols and bear management procedures. The grizzly and her cubs were not relocated or destroyed, as the attack was determined to be defensive behavior, triggered by a perceived threat to the cubs and food source. It was July 14, 2017, when the Southern Ocean waters around Neptune Islands churned with life off the coast of South Australia. The remote rocky outcrops served as a staging ground for cage diving with great white sharks. Faith Aldridge, 26, had traveled from Adelaide University, where she was completing her marine biology PhD, focusing on shark behavior and human interactions. Faith was a research assistant who had spent 3 years studying shark populations along the Australian coast. Her academic brilliance was matched by her passion for marine conservation, and she often spoke about the misunderstood nature of sharks. She had participated in numerous cage diving expeditions as part of her research, collecting behavioral data for her dissertation. Her colleagues knew her as someone who pushed boundaries in the name of science, often expressing frustration with protective barriers. The expedition was run by a reputable cage diving company with experienced dive masters who maintained strict safety protocols. Faith had joined the tour as a researcher gathering final data for her thesis. She carried underwater cameras and data collection equipment, planning to document feeding behaviors from within the safety of the steel cage. The morning briefing emphasized remaining inside the protective cage at all times, especially during feeding periods when sharks entered heightened activity states. The dive master explained that great whites were particularly active during this season, drawn by abundant seal populations. Faith listened while mentally planning her research observations, confident in her extensive diving experience. The great white shark represents the ocean's apex predator, a perfectly evolved killing machine unchanged for millions of years. Adult great whites can reach lengths of 20 feet and weigh over 5,000 pounds, with rows of razor-sharp triangular teeth designed to slice through flesh and bone. Their powerful tails can propel them through water at speeds exceeding 35 miles per hour. Great whites are investigatory predators, often approaching unfamiliar objects with exploratory bites. Their bite force can exceed 4,000 pounds per square inch, easily capable of severing limbs or crushing bones. During feeding frenzies, when blood and fish oil saturate the water, great whites enter a heightened predatory state. The afternoon dive began routinely, with the steel cage lowered into the water. Faith entered the cage with her diving equipment and underwater cameras, positioning herself to observe sharks that had begun circling the vessel. The crew initiated feeding protocol, dispersing fish blood and oil into the water to attract great whites. Within minutes, several massive sharks appeared. A particularly large great white, estimated at 16 feet in length, began making repeated passes near the cage. The water around the boat became increasingly murky with blood and fish oils, creating perfect conditions for aggressive shark behavior. Faith, eager to capture unprecedented footage, made the fatal decision to exit the protective cage. She slipped through the cage door, while the dive master was assisting other divers, swimming approximately 10 feet from the cage into the chum-filled water. Faith positioned herself between the feeding area and the approaching great white, hoping to capture the shark's feeding behavior. The great white detected Faith's presence when she was still 15 feet away, but the shark's predatory instincts were already fully engaged due to the feeding environment. The massive predator approached with deliberate speed, its black eyes focused on the unusual object. Faith raised her camera, unaware that her movements had triggered the animal's investigatory response. The attack occurred with devastating speed and precision. The great white struck Faith from below, its massive jaws opening to reveal rows of triangular teeth. The shark's bite encompassed Faith's torso, with the upper jaw clamping down on her chest and shoulder, while the lower jaw secured her waist. The initial bite force of over 4,000 pounds per square inch caused immediate and catastrophic damage to her rib cage, spine, and internal organs. The shark's teeth, each up to 3 inches long, penetrated deep into Faith's body cavity, severing major blood vessels, including the aorta. The bite crushed her sternum and several ribs, while the teeth punctured her heart and lungs. Blood immediately began pouring from the massive wounds, creating a crimson cloud in the water. True to great white behavior, the shark released Faith after the initial investigatory bite, recognizing she was not its preferred prey. However, the damage was already fatal. Faith's body went into immediate shock from the massive trauma and blood loss. The severed major arteries caused her blood pressure to drop rapidly, while the punctured lungs filled with water. She lost consciousness within 30 seconds and died from exsanguination and drowning within 2 minutes. The dive master and crew immediately initiated emergency procedures, pulling Faith from the water and attempting resuscitation, but the injuries were too severe. Emergency services were contacted, but Faith was pronounced dead before reaching shore. The South Australian Department of Environment launched an investigation, reviewing safety protocols. The tour operator faced scrutiny over supervision procedures, though investigators determined that Faith had violated safety protocols. It was November 18, 2018, when the dense forests of Gombe Stream National Park in Tanzania echoed with the calls of chimpanzees and the rustle of leaves in the canopy above. The park, established by Jane Goodall in the 1960s, stretched along the shores of Lake Tanganyika, providing perfect habitat for one of Africa's most studied chimpanzee populations. Erica Winslow, 23, had arrived 6 months earlier as part of her PhD research in primatology, eager to observe chimpanzee social structures for her dissertation at Cambridge University. Erica was a graduate research assistant whose academic brilliance had earned her a coveted position on the long-term research project. Her professors praised her dedication, but her field supervisors had grown concerned about her tendency to anthropomorphize the chimpanzee's behavior. She often spoke about the animals as if they were friendly neighbors rather than wild primates, expressing a desire to connect with them personally. The research station operated under strict protocols, developed over decades of study. Researchers were required to maintain a minimum distance of 15 feet from the chimpanzees at all times, never make direct eye contact, and avoid facial expressions that could be interpreted as threats. Erica had received extensive training on these protocols, but her field notes revealed a pattern of gradually pushing boundaries in her eagerness to capture intimate behavioral moments. Her research focused on territorial disputes between neighboring chimpanzee communities, particularly during feeding times when competition intensified aggressive behaviors. Erica had been documenting these interactions for months, but her supervisor had recently warned her about getting too close during tense situations. She dismissed these concerns, believing her months of observation had given her special insight into the animal's moods. Chimpanzees are humanity's closest living relatives, sharing over 98% of our DNA, but they possess physical capabilities that far exceed human strength. Adult males can weigh up to 150 pounds and are approximately 5 times stronger than humans of similar size. Their powerful arms can exert tremendous force, while their large canine teeth can inflict devastating wounds. Chimpanzees live in complex social hierarchies where dominance is established through displays of aggression and violence. During territorial conflicts, chimpanzees become extremely aggressive, viewing any unfamiliar presence as a potential threat to their group's resources. Their attacks are swift and brutal, targeting the face, hands, and genitals. Male chimpanzees are particularly dangerous during feeding competitions, when their territorial instincts are heightened. On the morning of November 18th, Erica followed a group of 8 chimpanzees to a fig tree heavy with ripe fruit. The location was disputed territory between 2 communities, and tension was evident in the animal's behavior. The alpha male, a large chimpanzee named Frodo, positioned himself prominently near the base of the tree, while other males spread out to guard the feeding site. As the morning progressed, a rival group approached from the east, creating a standoff between the 2 communities. The tension escalated rapidly, with both groups engaging in aggressive displays, screaming, and branch shaking. Erica, excited by the rare opportunity to observe intergroup conflict, moved closer to capture better footage. She positioned herself within 10 feet of the alpha male, violating safety protocols. When Frodo turned toward her, Erica made the fatal mistake of smiling and making direct eye contact. In chimpanzee communication, bared teeth represent an aggressive threat display, while direct eye contact is interpreted as a dominance challenge. Frodo's response was immediate and violent. The 120-pound male launched himself at Erica with explosive speed, his powerful arms propelling him across the distance in less than 2 seconds. His initial strike knocked Erica to the ground, his massive hands gripping her left arm with crushing force. The chimpanzee's grip strength of over 1,300 pounds per square inch immediately fractured the bones in her forearm. 2 other males joined the attack, interpreting Erica's presence as a territorial invasion during the critical feeding dispute. The chimpanzees focused their assault on Erica's face and arms, their primary targets during aggressive encounters. Frodo's powerful jaws clamped down on Erica's shoulder, his 4-inch canine teeth penetrating deep into the muscle and severing the brachial artery.
The attack continued for approximately 3 minutes, with the chimpanzees delivering multiple bites and strikes. Erica's scalp was partially torn away. Her fingers were severed by powerful bites, and deep lacerations covered her arms and torso. The most critical injury occurred when Frodo bit down on her neck, his canine teeth puncturing the carotid artery and causing massive blood loss.
Erica's body went into shock from the severe trauma and rapid blood loss. The severed brachial and carotid arteries caused her blood pressure to drop precipitously, while the multiple wounds created hypovolemic shock. She lost consciousness within 4 minutes of the initial attack and died from exsanguination before the research team could reach her location. The research station immediately contacted Tanzanian authorities and suspended all field activities pending investigation. The incident prompted a review of safety protocols across primate research facilities in the region. Erica Winslow's story served as a sobering reminder that even our closest relatives in the animal kingdom remain wild and unpredictable.
It was March 15, 2015. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the vast salt pan of Etosha National Park, Namibia, transforming the white mineral crust into shimmering gold. Scattered acacia trees dotted the landscape like ancient sentinels in the harsh Namibian wilderness. Everett Mays, a 34-year-old history teacher from Louisville, Kentucky, gripped the wheel of their rented Toyota Hilux. His methodical nature had earned him respect among colleagues. Beside him sat Trina Rowan, 31, a travel nurse from Springfield, Missouri, whose fearless approach to emergency medicine had saved countless lives in trauma units. The couple had met 3 years earlier at a backpacking expo, bonding over their shared belief that guidebooks were for the timid. Everett's analytical mind complemented Trina's bold instincts. He researched destinations obsessively while she pushed toward remote adventures. Their relationship thrived on proving they were different from ordinary tourists. Previous expeditions to photograph grizzly bears in Alaska and track wolves in Montana had reinforced their confidence. Everett had studied animal behavior patterns extensively, while Trina's medical training made her believe she could handle any emergency. For their anniversary, they'd chosen Namibia's lesser-known parks over Kenya's crowded Masai Mara. Park warning signs were clear: remain in vehicles at all times, especially during dawn and dusk when predators are most active. Yet Everett's research convinced him these rules applied to inexperienced visitors, not seasoned adventurers. Trina agreed. Her years treating accident victims had made her confident in assessing danger. Near the Okokwejo waterhole, Trina spotted movement beneath a large acacia tree 60 yards away. Through her telephoto lens, she identified a solitary lioness, her tawny coat blending with dried grass. African lionesses are apex predators weighing 265 to 395 pounds of muscle and instinct. Primary hunters of the pride, they reach speeds of 50 miles per hour in short bursts. Their jaws exert over 650 pounds per square inch of bite force, while retractable claws extend 1.5 inches, designed to grip and tear flesh. Everett studied the lioness through binoculars, cataloging her relaxed posture and slow breathing. Everything he'd read suggested calm animals posed minimal threat. Despite prohibition signs, his analytical nature convinced him they could approach safely for a unique photograph. They positioned their smartphone on the Toyota's hood, activating the timer. Everett's plan was precise. Walk 20 feet from their vehicle, pose with the lioness in the background, and return quickly. His confidence, combined with Trina's fearless nature, overrode any caution. The lioness had tracked them from the moment they exited. Her ears rotated toward the closing car doors, amber eyes following their movement. Apparent indifference masked the calculated patience of an apex predator assessing prey. As they positioned themselves for the photograph, Trina's bold instincts took over. Hoping to capture the lioness's attention for a dramatic shot, she softly clapped twice. The sharp sound cut through the evening air like a dinner bell. The lioness exploded from her position with terrifying speed, powerful hindquarters propelling her massive frame forward. The distance Everett had calculated as safe collapsed in seconds as she bounded forward, claws extended, jaws agape. Everett instinctively stepped between the charging predator and Trina. The lioness struck with freight train force, her 300-pound frame driving him backward. Her claws raked across his chest and shoulders, tearing through cotton into flesh beneath. Impact fractured 3 ribs and punctured his left lung. Her powerful jaws clamped down on his throat with crushing force. 3-inch canine teeth penetrated deep, severing his carotid artery and crushing his windpipe. Blood sprayed across salt-stained ground as his body convulsed. Trina's screams pierced the evening air as she fled toward their vehicle. The lioness released Everett's lifeless form and pursued. Trina managed 15 feet before superior speed closed the gap. The lioness struck from behind, claws raking down her back, tearing through hiking pants into muscle. Impact sent Trina sprawling face-first into rocky ground, sustaining severe facial abrasions. As she crawled toward safety, the lioness seized her left leg, crushing bite, fracturing tibia and fibula. Trina's cries echoed across the salt pan as the lioness shook her leg violently, behavior designed to disorient prey. The predator repositioned, clamping down on Trina's lower back with devastating force. Her spine snapped under pressure, instantly paralyzing her lower body. The lioness maintained her grip for several minutes, instincts driving her to ensure the prey was subdued. Trina's movements gradually weakened as blood loss and spinal trauma took their toll. Shallow, labored breathing marked her final moments. Car horns and shouting voices reached the site as tourists, having heard screams, arrived to investigate. They found the lioness positioned near her victims, muzzle stained with blood, showing no fear of approaching vehicles. Rangers arrived within 30 minutes, using tranquilizer darts to subdue the lioness before relocating her. Investigation revealed multiple safety protocol violations. though officials declined to pursue charges against the deceased couple's estate. It was September 15, 2016, in Glacier National Park, Montana. The morning mist clung to the jagged peaks as four college friends made their way along the winding mountain trail. Ellis Graber, a 21-year-old photography student from Utah, adjusted his camera strap and surveyed the wilderness stretching before them. Ellis had convinced his three roommates to join him on this road trip through Montana, promising content for their new adventure blog. Known on campus for his fearless approach to capturing the perfect shot, Ellis often pushed boundaries that made his friends nervous. His portfolio was filled with dramatic cliff-edge selfies and close encounters with wildlife that had earned him a reputation as someone who trusted his instincts over safety guidelines. The group had been hiking since dawn, following a lesser-known trail that Ellis had discovered through online forums. The path wound along a steep ridge overlooking a valley where park rangers had recently reported increased grizzly activity due to late-season berry feeding. Grizzly bears are among the most formidable predators in North America, with adult males weighing up to 800 pounds and possessing the ability to run at speeds exceeding 30 miles per hour. Their powerful claws, measuring up to 4 inches in length, are designed for digging and can easily tear through flesh and bone. During late summer and early fall, grizzlies enter hyperphagia, consuming up to 20,000 calories daily to prepare for winter hibernation. This feeding frenzy makes them particularly territorial when disturbed. As the group crested a rocky outcrop, Ellis spotted movement in the valley below. A massive grizzly bear was methodically stripping berries from bushes roughly 150 feet downhill. Ellis immediately pulled out his camera, excitement overriding caution as he began snapping photos from their elevated position. Ellis suggested they move closer to the cliff edge for a better angle, positioning themselves for what he called a zoomed-in style group selfie with the bear visible in the background below. His friends hesitated, but Ellis was already moving toward a narrow ledge that jutted out from the main trail. The sound of shifting rocks and excited voices carried down into the valley. The grizzly's head snapped up, its small, dark eyes scanning the cliff face above. Bears possess exceptional hearing, and the unusual sounds from an elevated position triggered their defensive instincts. Ellis, focused on framing the perfect shot, took another step closer to the edge. The loose shale beneath his feet gave way, sending rocks tumbling down the cliff face. The noise echoed through the valley as Ellis struggled to regain his balance, his arms windmilling as more rocks cascaded downward. The grizzly immediately identified the source of the disturbance. Perceiving a potential threat from above, the bear began climbing the steep incline, its powerful claws finding purchase on the rocky terrain. The ascent was methodical but determined, taking nearly 4 minutes as the massive animal navigated the treacherous slope. Ellis's friends scrambled backward along the trail, shouting warnings as they retreated to safety. Ellis, still trying to save his expensive camera gear, lost precious seconds before realizing the magnitude of danger approaching from below. He turned to follow his friends, but slipped on the loose rocks. The unstable shale gave way completely beneath Ellis's feet. He fell hard, tumbling 15 feet down the cliff face before landing on a narrow rocky shelf with a sickening crack. His left leg twisted at an unnatural angle, the femur snapping from the impact. Sharp rocks tore through his jacket and opened deep gashes across his arms and torso. The grizzly reached the base of the cliff and began climbing toward Ellis's position on the ledge. Trapped and unable to move due to his broken leg, Ellis could only watch as 800 pounds of muscle and fury approached. The bear, now in full defensive mode, hauled itself onto the narrow shelf. The grizzly's first swipe caught Ellis across the chest, its 4-inch claws raking through flesh and muscle with devastating force. The impact launched Ellis backward off the ledge, sending him tumbling another 30 feet down the rocky slope. His body struck multiple outcroppings during the fall, each impact causing additional fractures to his ribs and spine. Ellis landed at the base of the cliff, his neck twisted at a fatal angle from striking a large boulder. The combination of massive blood loss from the bear's claws, Multiple internal injuries from the falls and severe cervical spine trauma caused his death within minutes. The grizzly, having eliminated what it perceived as a threat, retreated back into the forest. Ellis's friends reached the nearest ranger station 2 hours later after hiking back to the trailhead. The remote location and challenging terrain delayed the helicopter rescue response until late afternoon. Search and rescue teams located Ellis's body at the base of the cliff as darkness fell. Park officials launched an investigation into the incident, ultimately determining that the bear had acted defensively when startled by the group's presence and the falling rocks. The grizzly was not pursued or relocated, as its behavior fell within normal defensive parameters for the species. The tragedy prompted Ellis's university to implement mandatory wilderness safety training for students participating in outdoor photography programs. It was March 15, 2016, in the Sariska Tiger Reserve Buffer Zone, Rajasthan, India. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the dry, deciduous forest of Rajasthan as 3 American backpackers stepped out of their hired tuk-tuk. The air hung heavy with dust and the lingering scent of mahua flowers from the recent spring bloom. Josie Kelm, a 22-year-old recent graduate from Colorado, stretched her arms wide as she surveyed the rugged landscape dotted with dock trees and rocky outcroppings. Her companions, Devin Lowry and Sierra Tran, gathered their camera equipment while their driver pointed toward a narrow trail leading up a gentle ridge. Josie had convinced her friends to take this detour during their month-long journey through India. Fresh out of college and hungry for authentic experiences, she had grown tired of crowded tourist sites and sanitized wildlife tours. When their tuk-tuk driver mentioned a quiet spot just outside Sariska Tiger Reserve, where locals sometimes glimpsed wildlife, Josie immediately seized the opportunity. Devin had expressed concerns about venturing into unofficial areas, but Josie's enthusiasm proved infectious. Sierra, though naturally cautious, found herself swept along by her friend's adventurous spirit. The buffer zone surrounding Sariska had become increasingly active following the monsoon season. Recent territorial shifts had pushed several tigers beyond the reserve's official boundaries as they sought new hunting grounds and water sources. Local forest guards had noted fresh pug marks and scratch marks throughout the area, but this information rarely reached casual visitors or unlicensed guides. Bengal tigers are apex predators weighing up to 660 pounds, capable of leaping horizontally over 30 feet and reaching speeds of 35 miles per hour in short bursts. Their powerful jaws exert a bite force of 1,050 pounds per square inch, designed to crush vertebrae and windpipes with devastating efficiency. These solitary hunters rely on stealth and ambush tactics, using their distinctive orange and black stripes to blend seamlessly with tall grass and dappled forest shadows. As the 3 friends climbed the rocky trail, Josie spotted a fallen log near the clearing's edge, its bark scored with deep parallel gouges. The scratch marks appeared fresh, with wood shavings scattered at the base. But Josie dismissed Devin's warnings about their significance. She positioned herself on the log, while Sierra set up their camera's timer function on a small tripod. The device's red light blinked steadily as they arranged themselves for the photograph. A young male Bengal tiger had been tracking their scent for several minutes from dense undergrowth 40 yards away. The 3-year-old cat, recently expelled from his mother's territory, had been exploring this new area when the unfamiliar sounds and smells drew his attention. The sudden mechanical click of the camera timer triggered his predatory instincts. The tiger exploded from